A woman's sex drive has an expiration date, and that's called menopause. And once a woman goes through menopause, why would she have sexual desires? Right? She can't procreate. She's not fertile. So why would you expect her to want sex? Hello, and welcome to Sex, Love, and Soul. I'm Mary Knight, and I am so glad that you're here. Last week, I talked about how to avoid dating women who have a low sex drive. And this week, I'm going to talk to y'all about low sex, no sex marriages. Let's go back to the basics for just a moment here. Because what is sex drive? Why do we have sexual desire? If you're a religious person, you might say that God gave us this desire so that we could go forth and multiply. If you don't believe in God, you could say, well, nature gave us this desire to procreate so we could continue the survival of our species. Either way, on a fundamental level, the purpose of having sexual desire is to procreate. And with that in mind, a woman's sex drive has an expiration date, and that's called menopause. And once a woman goes through menopause, why would she have sexual desires? Right? She can't procreate. She's not fertile. So why would you expect her to want sex? Nature has shut her down. Right? But having said that, if your wife has told you that because she's gone through menopause that she no longer has desire, in my opinion, the role that menopause is playing in her lack of sex drive is a lot smaller than you might think it is. Because lack of sex and lack of sexual desire is a symptom of other things that are going on in your marriage. I can say that about any low sex, no sex marriage. The lack of sex is not the core problem. It's a symptom of the real problem. And once your wife is in menopause and she's just shut it down completely, that seems to be the wake-up call for a lot of you. If your wife is feeling this way, chances are you have never had the kind of sex life that you really wanted. There was always something missing. Passion, variety, she never initiated. And now that she's finally come out with the pronouncement that she is not available for sex anymore, you're finally taking it seriously. And many of you are lamenting this life that you think you could have had. I hear a lot of men say that they blame their wives for their shitty sex life. She doesn't want to, so we don't. As if it's all up to her. Your wife didn't create this sexless dynamic all on her own. It was something that the two of you built together. Some of you have expressed to me that y'all have sex, but it's never been the kind that you wanted, or you never felt like she was ever really into it, and that she was just doing it out of duty, or out of obligation, or because you initiated, and that never really felt good to you, or felt right to you. And it seemed to you that she thought that sex was something that a man did to a woman, and you didn't know how to address that, so you didn't. And years have gone by with this kind of ho-hum sex life. And reflecting back on it, the biggest disappointment is that y'all didn't have a connection to one another. Because if you had a marriage that had this emotional depth and closeness and honesty, both of you opening your hearts, both of you really sharing yourselves, you would still be having sex. Even if your wife had already gone through menopause, that would have just been a little blip. Even if your wife had a baby 2 months ago, you would still be having sex if you had that connection. That lack of connection is why you don't have sex, and it takes both of you to create that. However, the feminine responds to the masculine. So if the masculine energy isn't stepping up, isn't present, isn't providing and protecting, and that doesn't just mean physically, it also means emotionally, spiritually, mentally, energetically. If you're not doing those things, then your wife can't feel the masculine presence, and then she can't relax into her feminine energy. And then there's no sexual polarity, resulting in, you guessed it, no sex. And the chances are, because of your relationship dynamic, you have put her in charge. You've put her in control in whether or not you have sex. She leads your sex life and by default has become the masculine. And so now she's the leader of that part of your relationship. And I guarantee you that does not feel good to her. She doesn't want to be in control of that. It doesn't feel good for a woman to have to be in her masculine energy when it comes to the sex part of the relationship. She wants to be open and flowing, and she wants to surrender to the masculine. And if you're letting her call all the shots, then you're not viewing sex as a shared experience. You're looking at it as something that she gives to you when she feels like it. And that she's doing it in a way to try to control you. Some of y'all feel that way. That, oh, she's withholding sex to control me. And yeah, sometimes that's true. But more often than not, it's because she doesn't want to be in control of that. But you're not looking at it as a shared experience and as something maybe that you do to her, that she lets you do to her. So of course you're not going to want to bother her with your dirty needs. Instead of thinking of it as being this connection that y'all have together, you know, where you're coming together and bearing your souls to one another, this incredible, amazing experience that you share with no one else in the world but your wife, then you might look at this differently. You're looking at this as something you do to her and that she lets you do to her. And in many marriages, even marriages, like new marriages, 10 years and less, like with young people, this dynamic is in their relationship too. Because there's still so much ignorance around female sex drive and just human sexuality. And the interesting thing is our culture is so obsessed with sex and marrying people just because we think they're hot, just because we find them beautiful in some way. We think they're sexy. And yet we end up in relationships where we're not having sex. If the way that you approach sex every time is that you're using her body to comfort you, for your relief, for your satisfaction, for your pleasure. And I'm not saying that she's not orgasming too, but if the way that you're approaching her, if the energy and the thoughts you have is just this superficial connection, when things get rocky or she's had a baby or she's gone through menopause, this superficial connection, that animal urge, it doesn't exist in her anymore. Now, if she's just had a baby, you know, that animal urge will come back. But once a woman goes through menopause, that animal urge, it's gone. It's just not there anymore. This is not the season in life for that. You know, but with me and my husband, I went through menopause several years ago, and our sex life is still good because we're emotionally connected. We're both almost 60. Well, actually, my husband just turned 60. Because we have a depth to our relationship. It's beyond the superficial animal sex. Even though my gynae does still tingle, it's not quite the same animal urge. I am on bioidentical hormones, so my hormone levels aren't like what they were in my 20s and 30s and even in my early 40s, but it's enough to make sure that I'm healthy and that I'm feeling good in my body and that I'm still feeling youthful and sexy. And so with your wife, if she doesn't have that animal lust, and sex is different now, because now sex requires connection more than ever. Because it's not the same energy of, hey, let's do a quickie in the laundry room. There's not that crazy animal lust, which even if you're both in your 30s, it is something that over time tends to dissipate. It'll pop back up, you know, if you're young and she's still fertile, that will definitely just like pop back up every now and then out of nowhere. And you're like, hey, whoa, where'd you go? Hi, this is awesome, how fun. But that's not the basis of your sexual relationship anymore. It's about connecting with her. It's about seduction. It's about luxuriating in the experience. You're not going to see sex like this in a porno. There's adjustments that need to be made. And the only way that these adjustments can be made is by communicating. And if you're not used to talking to each other about sex, about your needs, your wants, your fantasies, it's going to make this transition very difficult. Difficult to the point where a lot of women just aren't even interested at all. Again, you have to have a connection for a woman to want to open up to you and surrender to the masculine. She has to feel you. You're different too. If you have a wife who's gone through menopause, you're an older man, and your drive and your energy levels have changed too. You know, this is a time for you to evolve also. Once their wife has said, hey, I'm going through menopause now, it reminds you of how old you are. It's a reality check that, oh, our sex life didn't magically get better. What was I doing all these years? I wasted these years not having sex, not being satisfied, not getting what I wanted, not getting what I needed, not revealing my true self to my wife. And a lot of times y'all will think of just not the having sex, but also just a lifetime of connection and personal growth and spiritual development and soul growth, emotional depth that you missed out on. If their wives have really shut them down, this is when they start seeing escorts, because they're trying to make sure they don't miss out on anything else that they want to experience in their lives. They don't want to waste any more time. And so they'll go and spend time with women where they can indulge their sexual desires. But it's interesting to me that it is at this time that you finally start taking this seriously and don't just take for granted that one day it'll magically change and you'll have the sex life of your dreams once your wife comes around, that she'll figure it out. She'll just come around. Don't leave it all up to her. You have to be willing to step up and step in yourself. But all hope isn't lost, right? You can start a new relationship with your wife. I can show you how. I'll keep making videos. And also, I am available for private one-on-one coaching. And I talk to men about this stuff all the time. And you can find out more about my coaching on sexloveandsoul.com. I also have a book, How to Turn Nice into Your Sexy Superpower. It helps you to get into your body and out of your head, which is a lot of what's going on in this dynamic, is that you're overthinking sex, right? Even though you're not having it, you're just overthinking and you're thinking, oh, well, it'll get better, it'll get better. And what happens is when we stay in our heads instead of in our bodies and in our lives, we often, men and women, right, we don't get what we want. And so my book, How to Turn Nice into a Sexy Superpower, is available also sexloveandsoul.com. Right now I'm selling it for $8. It is a bargain at twice the price. But yeah, check that out. And yeah, email me if you have any questions or comments. I love hearing from y'all. Thank you so much for listening, and bye for now.